Scenes like these are all too common here in Umtata in the Eastern Cape. Young people who should be in school join adults to spend most days here, scavenging for food and recyclable goods to earn a few rands to survive. Some people also eke out a living through pushing trolleys in town. In the village of Echeloni, people dig up river sand to sell to truck drivers. In this two-part series, we travel to various parts of the province dubbed the Home of Legends, profiling the stories of young people and women who seem to have been condemned to a life of shattered dreams where poverty and exploitation reigned. This is Umtata, a town based in the Eastern Cape's capital, Bisho. The province is dubbed the Home of Legends for being the birthplace of many esteemed political legends like Nelson Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, and Oliver Tambo. But poverty in the area is a far cry from the freedom that these leaders espoused. In this stump, some adolescents join their parents who migrate from rural areas to urban areas in search of a better life, but they often end up starving without opportunities. To survive, they work in dumps, rivers, and on the streets. Sinalo says she comes from a home of 4 siblings between the ages of 3 and 9. All of them do not attend school. She doesn't have a birth certificate and works in this dump with her mother, who preferred not to be interviewed. Many of the young people here live with their mothers and say they had to leave school to help sustain themselves and their families.
Okay. So manseni sithengisile ngiyakwazi ukuthola at least bayanibhadala bese banibhadala good money like ngilanga mhlambe bangabe uright uthola malini so like
imbombo zithola 50 rand cardboard iqhamuka kwisikali iphepha iqhamuka kwisikali na izinto idona kidoti bangu1 fumana 10 rand
so nizisa phi nizidonsa nizise phi nizithola nizise etown
kuza itruck izoyithatha.
Her 16-year-old friend also doesn't have a birth certificate. They were with Aphelele's 12-year-old cousin when they spoke to us. It is illegal for the teenagers to be here, as this, according to the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, is dangerous work. The act prohibits children between the ages of 15 to 18 from employment that's inappropriate for their age or work that places them at risk. However, the teenagers like these women who come here every day, some with children on their backs, say they can either rummage through this dump for food or literally starve. They are oblivious to the potential health hazards they face as they touch and inhale potentially dangerous substances. Out of embarrassment, they avoided speaking to us. They say they feel ashamed by their means of survival. It's a Thursday morning, and today the waste reclaimers are visited by Good Samaritans who have cooked food for them. It doesn't happen every day, but they, like 25-year-old Samkele Sizani, are thankful as today's meal has been taken care of. Like the young women we spoke to earlier, he started coming here when he was a teenager after leaving school to assist his struggling mother.
I left in 2015, so it's called 2019. And then into endisosebhala ukuba andinamsebenzi mos.
So isikolo bowususiqedile bona 18
Bengingasiqedi bendifunda ugrade 8.
grade 8
Ugrade 10.
okay so wasekiswa yini ke ku-grade 10
Kaloku bendingena-school fees. Akho mntu osebenzayo ekhaya. So wayesebenza umntu wayeka ke ngophela umsebenzi.
His mother, who also declined an interview, and 2 of his younger siblings also work here. We later caught up with Sizani at his home after a grueling day. He lives with his wife and their 2 children. His entire family also works at the landfill site.
Uzodwa fethu.
so wena zodwa unangakhi
Mna na 25. Kuba singekho enye indawo esinoya kuyo. Sibona uba masivele simane sisebenza pha kuba izinto siye sizifumane pha. Like neepampasi. Siye senza itoti sifumane ipampasi pha naxa singenakutya apha endlini sithengise neembombozi nombane ngokunjalo ke.
The couple and their friends, who they share a yard with, recycle bottles and cardboard. Sizani says it is a 6-day job. He says he makes at least 50 rand for a bag of recycled bottles per day, and says it takes 2 weeks for him to accumulate enough to sell. While he and his wife do not like what they do, they are grateful that it feeds them and prevents them from getting involved in crime.
Lithi iyandisiza kodwa makunethile siyachaneka because azingeni truck. Bona naleyana ngoku izothenga amakhabhodi kodwa makunethile ayizungena izawuma. Silale singenake ngoku imali basithenge izinto. Ngoba nezi 350 zisiza uba iyaphela i-350. Kaloku uboleka imali uye town ufike ubhatale ngayo imali. Uye town and nabo abantu pha makugcwele bafuna uba sibabhatale kaloku balala pha bona basifake phambili mos.
He says both his children are sick. He suspects food poisoning from the food he recently brought home from the dump site.
Ndandithetha nglo mfana yinyani. Koze siya sincame siyotya zanto ziboleyo zindala pha zilahlwa pha. Sizityise abantwana ngoba akho kutya nyani. Yabo. So noku ingase ibe khona into ezizamekayo. Phaa nguxhuthwaxhuthwano phayana. Xa ungene phayana ulindelwe ukugwazwa ngesisheshe kuphathwa izisheshe amabhozo. Yonke into ulindelwe ukulimala. Kubuye ebantwaneni sekulwana kufele phaa. Abantu abaninzi sebefile ke ilaa nto yapha. So laa nto asiyithande laa nto uba sizinikezele phaa. Ekulisi ungathiwa nantsi iprojekthi mhlawumbi ungangcono.
We couldn't confirm the number of people who have already lost their lives while working at the dump site. In recent times, Sizani and his wife have been feeling apprehensive about the news of the looming closure of the dump site. The municipality has announced its closure due to the health hazard it presents to the locals.
Abantu bazoba into zabantu bazomosha ngoku abantu. Makasamele umsebenzi ayikho isolo kwesiqatha befuna ubuvotelwa yilo.
According to Stats SA, the Eastern Cape province has South Africa's highest unemployment rate at nearly 53%, and at least 72% of its population lives below the poverty line, with most residents depending on social grants. Adding to the lack of development are reported high levels of corruption and poor governance. Many young people, like 20-year-old Luthando Mia, who also earns a living pushing trolleys, are preoccupied with the struggle to survive. Luthando augments his daily meals through getting food at this soup kitchen, where a local organization serves Umtata's homeless and unemployed residents. He says he was 7 years old when he first came to the province with his mother, who later left him with relatives. He left his grandmother's home at 15 and sought help at a shelter. He asked us to conceal his identity.
So wafika kanjani? Yeah. Bekazosebenza noma kubo la.
Bengazosebenza but wayenzisa kwifamily yakhe. Uhlala noTata eCheloni.
Ukwenzakaleni ukuthi usuke kwifamily yakhe ke umama weza wakushiya ngefamily yakhe? Kwenzakalani?
Yabe seke they decide uya apha.
Wena was decided.
Seliqolweni. I decide uya eliqolweni khona ukuze ndikwazi ukufunda.
Why bongakwazi ukufunda lapha efamily kamama?
Ayikuba bengakwazi ukufundisa qha bendifuna indawo nje izondenza uba ndikhululeke because bengingakhululeki pha.
Ungakhululeki. Ngokunganankinga mhlawumbe yokuthi ukudla, mhlawumbe kuyahlusheka kunamuntu osebenzayo lapha ekhaya bomama.
Bebekhona abantu abasebenzayo qha abakhathali.
Unfortunately, he ended up not finishing school.
Khona into ezingahambi kahle esikolweni. Kune-subject ezindlulayo.
So, what give up away?
Angigive up.
Kwenzakalani?
Ngisazama nje ufuna nje college.
After he turned 18, as per the provisions of the state-run foster care policy, he had to leave the shelter and ended up on the streets. With the help of a local organization, he found another place to stay. Like many other young people we encountered in the streets of Umtata, he now survives through money he gets for pushing trolleys in town.
Ndiyakwazi ukuthenga ukudla nempahla xa ngaba ndithe ndaseyiva.
Mama kuyaseyiveka.
Kuyaseyiveka ngeentsuku zepeli.
Wabuya umama noTata bazobheka.
UTata zange ndambone siza.
Umama yena
Ugcine ngo-2019.
Uyasho bayasho mara isizathu ukuthi angasezi.
Umama uyasibeka isizathu esenza uTata angafuni uza.
Uthi yini?
Uthi yena kanokwazi ushiya laa ndawo ahlala kuyo eze apha e-Eastern Cape or ezobona mna qha. Uba yintoni ke ingxaki yayo andazi.
Uzifile kanjani le nto le wazi ukuthi umama uyaphila?
Hayi kona andikhululekanga ncam. Because ndike ndimane ifika into enjalo apha kum ukuba ndimcinge.
We also traveled to Echeloni village in Bizana, following concerns about young people who drop out of school to find food for themselves and their families. SABC News first highlighted the issue in the area in 2020. We found that nothing has changed here. Many young people continue to be exposed to potential injuries and hypothermia, spending their days in muddy waters, which could also drown the young ones who join in to dig sand in a bid to escape endemic poverty. While some come here on weekends only and go to school during the week, hunger and other social dynamics have pushed young people to the limit, resulting in them giving up on their quest for education. 24-year-old African Duli is one of them.
Usebenza lana?
Sisebenza khona la emfuleni. Ukuzikhiphela nje umngeni nje sithengisela amatraki. Sifumane imali sikwazi ba umuntu ahambe odla endlini. Kuyaxhomeka ngenye imini siyangena ngo-5 ekuseni kusemnyama. Ngenye imini siyangena ngo-7 kuyashiyana uba ulaluna nihlabathi uma ulalungenayo kuyanyanzeleka ufike kusemnyama kakhulu ukuze ukwazi uba uthengise phela amatraka avamisile ukufika kusesekuseni kakhulu.
Securing healthy meals on a daily basis is not possible. If they don't sell any sand, this guava tree comes in handy. Afika says even though they face exploitation daily, they have no other option but to enjoy.
Makusebenze kahle ngosuku hayi balako 200 kuphela ngosuku makusebenze kahle kodwa kubanzima nalapho manje uvile la esinqeni lapho manje sowuforsa nalapho njengoba sokhipha kanje iba yi1 nibe babini 150 yabo iphele kanjalo okanye nihlanganiseke kanye nibuye nibe baninzi nihlanganyele niqole 50 rand.
Afika's fellow sand miners call him Kansela. He started living here with his dogs in 2015 when his mother passed away. He looks after his sister, who stays with relatives. He says some of his fellow miners are 14 years old and he worries about their well-being.
Every day, lo neqala nishulele ebusuku uyavuka uvumoya uthi bhu uthi oh kwabakosa kunjani ekseni kwamanzi siyaku bana noma fana abancane bayisisebenza nabo vele ubombe indlela abayigodulayo kosiyamlusisi kyanyanze bamane kubasa umlilo ngapha manje bephuma beyokotha babe baphinde khona ayikho enye indlela cause kula sifumana khona into basikwazi ba sidle.
Oh, so yini igama lethimini?
Ya, Tero ya.
Eh?
Royal.
Royal bani?
FC.
Oh, okay.
Afika's passion is soccer. He is a member of the local soccer team. He says it helps him to forget about the stresses in his life, where he must struggle to access everything, including clean water.
So niphuza wona lamanzi lawa alapha emlanjeni lapha enigubha khona.
Sister uphuzwa wona ayikho enye indlela. Uphuzwa wona. Kuba nasendlini kuyefana mase suphuza wona kuyefana nasendlini uyophuza wona. Akekho amanye amanzi aphuzwayo.
So niyawaboila lamanzi?
Hayi siyawaphuza. Siyawaphuza nje aswabhoyi.
Awanigulisi kodwa wona.
Hayi bengakasigulisa ngokuza asikaboni into ngoku. Singathi kona kasigulisi kanti le mikhuhlane manje siphatha kancane siyeka kanti ngawo. Esas.
He was in matric when he dropped out of school.
Bowuyiswa yini?
Imali benibetha kakhulu okuya esikolweni. Fune before nibe nemali okuya esikolweni. Fune ndihambe ndiyokwenza wona lo msebenzi emfuleni le veki yonke ndiyigqibe. Ndibe nemali kakuhle. Then kwiveki ezayo ndifunde iphele le imali support bakuye iveki futhi manje phinde ndihambe ndiyozama eyokufunda iveki ezayo. Labona baye ngumdlalo lokho ndifika ndisemve ezifundweni lo ndifika ndisemva nabona bayi umdlalo lo ngcono suke ndihlale phansi because akekho umuntu ongixhasayo. Transport kude izikolo zikude ema high school. Ayikho ekufishane ngakwazi ukuthi ube ndizokhele ndizele ngenyawo.
So bowuyithola igrant?
Ndandiyifumana yona igrant because yakhawuleza yaphela. Utata omdala wathi yakwazi ukuyivuselela sendimdala noma umuntu osengangama ayivuseleni na.
Downstream of the river where Councillor works, we saw young boys and girls fetching drinking water and women doing their laundry. After loading the water, the children must climb the hill with heavy buckets on their heads.
You see, this is a rural area, remote. These kids are living with old people, some of them, even if their mothers are young. They go and work somewhere. Even when you talk about child support grants, they are not utilized to take care of these kids.
Bandile Mdliva works for Nalituba Development Group, established to train locals to create sustainable jobs for themselves, mainly in the agricultural and manufacturing sectors.
It's an NGO that was formed by young people. We were young then. We graduated because we wanted young people first to be involved in the development of their own thinking. Because they always say, be the change that you want to see.
His organization raised the alarm in 2020 when SABC News first highlighted the plight of young people here. He says the exploitation of children is rife in the rural areas of the Eastern Cape and has become normalized.
It is coming out of very bad backgrounds that is forcing them to do such. But if we look at different environments, like in urban areas, you see young kids, they are given toys even at school to play with. By simply playing with toys, you can see, oh, this one is skilled. This man, his mind is channeled to this direction. But now you see young people in rural areas being forced by circumstances to do only one thing: hard labor, child labor. Last year in July 2021, we worked with the previous councillor to even bring food parcels to these families, but that's not sustainable. If now the conditions are not changed and they continue to live in this way, we will see a future that is not bright at all. Because if you can see a young kid like this carrying buckets during the school hours, you definitely see that in terms of finishing school or even having a courage to go to school will fade away eventually.
He says more needs to be done to improve the quality of life of the residents.
The level of change that you find in the interventions put by government are not sustainable. If everyone comes on board and address these issues, that's when we'll know and see a visible change. Less and lesser of these kids out of these poor situations will come out of that cohesion.
Africa and his peers say they are pained by their way of life, especially since they can do nothing when it rains.
Yo, situation bad.
ndiphindele esikolweni ndifuna uba ngudokotela ndiphumza umama ahlale phaa phantsi.
Watch next week as we knock on doors to try and get answers from the government on why this situation persists despite available resources and knowledge about it.